The kitchen was filled with the comforting aroma of lasagna, Ethan's favorite. I had spent the entire afternoon preparing it, making sure each layer was perfect. The sauce was rich, the cheese melted just right, and I had even added garlic bread, just the way he liked it. The table was set beautifully, with soft candlelight flickering, and the wine was poured, waiting for us to share. This was supposed to be the night I finally told Ethan about the pregnancy. The secret I had been keeping for weeks, hiding behind my fears and doubts. I was going to tell him, hoping for a joyful response, for a happy future. The thought of it made my stomach flip nervously. Ethan and I hadn't been the same lately. I had started feeling distant from him, like there was something hanging between us, something I couldn't touch but could feel. For weeks, I had wanted to share my pregnancy with him, but fear kept me from doing so. Fear of how he would react. Fear of how his mother, Vivian, would react. Would he be happy? Would he understand? I glanced at the clock. Ethan was supposed to be home by now. I had spent the last 20 minutes just staring at the door, my nerves making every second feel like an eternity. Vivian, his mother, was already seated at the table, her eyes scanning the room with disapproval. She had been living with us for a few months now, ever since her divorce. At first, I thought it would be a temporary arrangement, but now it felt like she was never going to leave. "Are you all right, dear?" Vivian's voice broke through my thoughts, laced with a tone of concern that I knew wasn't really concern at all. It was more like an inspection, an evaluation of whether everything was up to her standards. I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just waiting for Ethan." Vivian's lips curled into a thin smile, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I'm sure he'll be along shortly." She leaned back in her chair, folding her arms across her chest, her gaze cold and calculating as always. "I must admit, I'm surprised you're cooking tonight. I thought Ethan would be too busy with work to have dinner with you." I hesitated, feeling the weight of her words. "I thought it would be nice. A family dinner," I said, my voice slightly shaking. Vivian's eyes flicked over to the lasagna. "Well, we'll see if it's as good as last time," she remarked dryly, her disapproval hanging in the air like a thick cloud. I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't respond. What was the point? Vivian always had something negative to say, no matter how hard I tried. I had come to expect it, but tonight was supposed to be different. The sound of the door opening made my heart leap in my chest. Ethan walked in, his tired eyes meeting mine. He gave a half smile that didn't reach his eyes, and I could tell he was exhausted. His dark hair was a little messy, his shoulders slumped. It seemed like the weight of the world was pressing down on him, and I couldn't understand why. "Hey," he said quietly, slipping off his shoes and hanging his jacket on the coat rack. He didn't come straight to me. Instead, he moved toward the living room, taking a moment to glance at Vivian before sitting down. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I made your favorite." I gestured to the lasagna. "I thought we could have a nice evening." Ethan nodded, but his eyes were distant. He seemed distracted, like he wasn't really seeing me. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. Vivian, of course, was the first to break it. "This smells nice, Grace," she said, her voice as cold as ever. "But you really should have just called me. I could have helped with the preparations. You've been so busy with your work and everything." I stiffened. The words stung, but I swallowed my frustration. "I wanted to do this for us, for you both." Vivian's eyes flicked over to the lasagna again, her expression unreadable. She didn't say anything more, but I knew what she was thinking. I always knew. Just as I was about to speak, Vivian leaned in toward Ethan, whispering something in his ear. My stomach twisted. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw the change in Ethan's face. It was like a switch flipped. His calm expression disappeared in an instant, replaced by a look of anger. His jaw clenched, and he stood up abruptly, pushing his chair back with a sharp scrape against the floor. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling with uncertainty. Ethan's gaze shifted to me, cold and accusatory. "Is this true?" he demanded, his voice rising with suspicion. Are you pregnant? My heart dropped into my stomach. The blood drained from my face. I stood there frozen for a moment, unsure of what to say. Yes, I finally whispered, the word feeling like it was tearing me apart. I'm pregnant, Ethan. I was going to tell you tonight. The words barely left my mouth before Ethan's face twisted with anger. And in that split second, everything I had feared became a reality. Without warning, his hand shot out, and before I could even react, the sharp sting of his slap hit me across the cheek. I gasped, stumbling backward as my body collided with the wall behind me. The world tilted, and my vision blurred. The room seemed to spin as I tried to steady myself. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I couldn't make a sound. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Ethan! I gasped, my voice hoarse and barely audible. What are you? But he wasn't listening. His eyes were wide with shock, his breath coming in sharp gasps. Grace! I didn't mean... I put my hand to my cheek, feeling the burn of his slap. I looked down at the floor, and there, half hidden under my purse, was the positive pregnancy test I had carelessly dropped. Ethan's gaze followed mine, and his eyes locked onto the test. His face drained of all color. You're pregnant? He repeated, his voice trembling. I nodded, the tears streaming down my face now. I couldn't stop them. I wanted to tell you. I thought we'd have a moment. But it's all ruined now. I didn't care about the dinner anymore. I didn't care about anything except the deep, aching hurt in my chest. How could he do this to me? How could he hurt me like this? Vivian stood there, silent, her expression unreadable, but I could see the hint of satisfaction in her eyes. I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but all I could do was stand there, numb with disbelief. The sound of the door creaking open broke through the silence. Chloe, my neighbor and best friend, appeared in the doorway. She had obviously heard the shouting. Her expression was filled with concern, and her eyes flicked between me, Ethan, and Vivian, taking in the situation. Grace? She asked softly, moving quickly to my side. What happened? Are you okay? I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, my voice failing me. Chloe's arm wrapped around my shoulders, and she gently guided me toward the door. I couldn't look at Ethan anymore. Not after what had just happened. Not after the slap, the betrayal. I'm leaving, I whispered, barely able to choke out the words. Chloe didn't ask questions. She just wrapped me in her embrace and led me out of the house. As we stepped outside, I could hear Vivian's voice, her dismissive words following us. Ethan, darling, she's hysterical. You know how women get when they're pregnant. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The weight of what had just happened felt like it was crushing me. The days that followed that night were a blur of pain, confusion, and disbelief. After Chloe helped me leave the house, we stayed at her place, and it felt like a temporary refuge from the chaos I had just left behind. But as the days stretched on, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. Ethan's slap still echoed in my mind, and every time I closed my eyes, I could see the look of shock and horror on his face when he realized what he had done. Could I ever forgive him? Could I ever go back to him? Could I really trust him again? These questions tormented me day and night, and the weight of them felt unbearable. Chloe didn't ask questions. She simply let me cry, holding me when I needed it, and making sure I had everything I needed to get through each day. Her apartment was a small sanctuary, filled with warmth and safety. But it wasn't home. It didn't feel like a place where I could heal. It felt like a place where I was just surviving. One afternoon, Chloe and I were sitting in her living room, a cup of tea in hand, when I heard the familiar chime of my phone. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to see his name. Ethan had called me at least 15 times over the last few days, leaving me messages that all started the same way. Grace, I'm sorry. Please, let's talk. But how could I talk to him after what he had done? How could I forgive someone who had hurt me in the worst way possible? How could I even look at him after he had slapped me, his pregnant wife, right in front of his mother? Are you going to listen to him? Chloe asked gently, her voice breaking through my thoughts. I looked at the phone, unsure. I had already deleted all his messages, but this time, there was something different. He had texted me a simple line. Can we please talk? I'm begging you. I felt the tears well up again. I had never imagined my life would come to this. I had never thought that the man I loved would hit me. I had never thought I'd be in this position, sitting in a stranger's home, my whole world crumbling around me. I felt like a part of me was missing, like I didn't even know who I was anymore. Chloe watched me carefully, her eyes full of concern. You don't have to decide anything right now, she said, her voice steady. But you need to figure out what's best for you, Grace. Not for Ethan, not for Vivian. For you. I nodded, wiping my eyes. I don't know if I can go back. I don't know if I can ever trust him again. Chloe took a deep breath, then placed a hand on mine. You don't have to trust him right now, but you need to make the decision when you're ready. Just remember, you're not alone in this. It felt like a weight was being lifted from my chest, just a little bit. Chloe's words, simple as they were, gave me a sense of control, of agency in a situation where I had felt completely powerless. I could make the decision when I was ready. No one could force me into anything. The next few days were filled with silence. Ethan kept calling, texting, leaving messages, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Every time I heard his voice in my head, I remembered the slap, the shock in his eyes, the way he looked at me as if I was some kind of stranger. I felt like I didn't know who he was anymore. And worse, he didn't know who I was either. But it wasn't just Ethan I had to worry about. Vivian had become an ever-present force in my life. I hadn't seen her since the night of the slap, but I could feel her presence like a shadow looming over me. She had always been manipulative, but now it was clear that she wasn't just a part of the problem. She was the root of it. I had never realized how much power she had over Ethan until that moment. It wasn't just about her constant criticisms or her belittling comments. It was about how she controlled him, how she made him question me, made him believe her lies. I felt like I had been living in her shadow for so long, unable to escape. One morning, about a week after the incident, I decided to go out for a walk. I needed space to think, to clear my head. Chloe was at work, and I felt the weight of the apartment pressing down on me. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that only comes after a storm. The world felt different, as though everything had shifted in a way that I couldn't quite understand. I walked aimlessly, letting the cool breeze brush against my skin, feeling disconnected from everything around me. That's when I heard a voice. Grace! I stopped, turning around to see Ethan standing behind me. His face was pale, his eyes red and swollen, as if he hadn't slept in days. My heart skipped a beat. Part of me wanted to turn and walk away, to ignore him, to continue running from everything that had happened. But another part of me, the part that still loved him, that still wanted him, wanted to hear him out. Ethan! I whispered, my voice barely audible. What are you doing here? I had to see you, he said, his voice raw. He stepped closer, his hands trembling. I've been calling, texting. I'm sorry. I never meant for things to get this far. I shook my head, the words choking me. You hit me, Ethan. You slapped me in front of your mother. How can I ever forget that? His face contorted with guilt, and he reached out, but I stepped back. Grace, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I can't undo what I did, but I swear to you, I will do whatever it takes to make things right. I need you. I need us. Please. The desperation in his eyes broke something inside me. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that he could change, that he could be the man I once knew. But the hurt, the betrayal, was still fresh. I didn't know if I could ever trust him again. I don't know if I can, Ethan, I said, my voice shaking. I don't know if I can forgive you. And I can't go back to the way things were. I'm pregnant, Ethan. I'm carrying our child. I need to know that I can raise this child in a safe, loving home. I can't do it if you keep letting your mother control us. Ethan's expression faltered. I know. I know I've let her do that. I've let her control everything, but I'm done. I swear. I'm going to therapy. I've already started. I'm going to change. I have to, for you, for our baby. The sincerity in his voice made my heart ache, but I didn't know if it was enough. I didn't know if I could believe him. I don't know if I can believe you, Ethan, I whispered. I don't know if I can trust you again. Ethan's eyes filled with tears, and he dropped his head in shame. Please, Grace. I need you to trust me. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever it takes. The silence stretched between us. I looked at him, seeing the man I once loved, but also the man who had hurt me in the worst possible way. The decision wasn't going to be easy, but I knew one thing. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about our child, the life growing inside me, the future we could build together, or the one we could lose forever. I need time, I said quietly. I can't make this decision right now. I need to think, but I'll give you a chance. If you're serious about changing, if you're really going to do the work, then maybe we can try. But I can't promise anything. Ethan nodded, his face full of relief, but I could still see the uncertainty in his eyes. Thank you. I'll prove it to you, I swear. As he walked away, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me was hopeful, but another part of me was terrified of the possibility of more pain. Would he really change? Or was this just another broken promise? I wasn't sure, but for the sake of my child, I was willing to try, one step at a time. But the road ahead was uncertain, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. It would take time, patience, and trust, something I wasn't sure I had left to give. The following weeks felt like walking through a fog, each step uncertain, each day blending into the next, with no real clarity. The promise Ethan made to change weighed heavily on me, but every time I looked at him, I couldn't help but remember the slap. The burn of his hand on my cheek was something that wouldn't easily fade from my memory, no matter how much I wanted it to. But for the sake of the baby growing inside me, I tried to believe. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, though a part of me feared that doing so would only set me up for more pain. Ethan had started therapy. That was a positive step, or at least it seemed like it. He sent me texts almost daily about his sessions, about what he was learning, but none of it made me feel any less afraid. I was happy he was trying, but at the same time, I felt like I was waiting for him to slip up, waiting for him to prove that I had been right to walk away. I knew I couldn't live in fear forever, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to put my trust in him again. Chloe had been my rock through all of this. She never judged me for staying or for considering reconciliation with Ethan. She only ever wanted what was best for me and the baby, but even she could see how much I was struggling. You deserve peace, Grace, she said one evening as we sat on the couch in her living room. And if Ethan is really going to change, you have to be sure that's what you're getting. Not just words, but actions. His actions will tell you everything. I nodded, taking a sip of the tea she had made for me. I know. I'm just not sure I'll ever be able to feel safe again. Every time I think I'm okay, the memories of that night come rushing back. The slap, his face, the way he looked at me, like I wasn't the woman he loved anymore. I get it, Chloe said softly. But you don't have to decide everything right now. Take your time. You can't rush healing. The next morning, Ethan called me. His voice was softer than usual, more tentative. Grace, I want to meet. I know you're not ready, but I just need to see you. We can talk. We can take it slow, but I need to know you're still willing to try. Please. I need to fix this. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him that I couldn't do it anymore, that I'd been hurt too much. But then I thought of the baby, and my heart softened. Okay, but only for a little while, I replied. I'm still not sure about any of this, Ethan, but I'll meet you. We agreed to meet at a park nearby, a neutral place where neither of us would feel trapped. When I arrived, Ethan was already sitting on a bench, his hands clasped tightly in his lap, his posture stiff and anxious. The sight of him made my heart ache. He looked like the same man I had fallen in love with, but there was something different now, something broken. He looked up as I approached, his eyes pleading. "Grace," he whispered, "I'm so sorry. I know I can never undo what I did, but I'm going to keep working. I won't give up on us, I swear. I know it's hard for you to believe, but I love you. I love our baby, and I won't let you down again." I stood there, looking at him, trying to gauge whether he was being honest. Was this the man I married? Or was this just another version of him, a version I had never seen before? His eyes were filled with remorse, but I couldn't ignore the doubt that lingered in the pit of my stomach. I, I don't know if I can ever trust you again," I said quietly. My voice trembled, but I was determined to hold firm. "I don't know if I can forget what you did, what you put me through, but I need to know, can you really change?" "I don't expect you to forgive me overnight," Ethan said, his voice full of emotion. "I just need you to give me a chance. A real chance. I'll do whatever it takes. Please, Grace, please." The sincerity in his voice made something in me waver, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that maybe, just maybe, he was only saying what he thought I wanted to hear. "I need more than just words, Ethan," I replied, my voice steady. "I need to see the changes. I need to feel safe again. I can't do this if I'm still afraid of you. And I need to know that you're willing to stand up to your mother. I can't live like this anymore." Ethan nodded, his face full of shame. "I know. I've been weak. I've let her control me for so long, and I let you pay the price for it. But that stops now. I'm done with her influence. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right, to make it safe for you, for our family." The tension in my chest eased just slightly, but it wasn't enough to make me believe everything he said. I still had so many questions, so many doubts. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this could work, but the scar from that night was still fresh, and I didn't know if time could heal it. "I don't know, Ethan," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "I don't know if I can forgive you for what happened." He took a deep breath, his face a mask of determination. "Then let's take it one step at a time," he said. "I'm not asking for forgiveness now. I'm asking for the chance to prove to you that I can change. Please, Grace, for the sake of our child, can you at least give me that chance?" I stared at him, torn between the love I still felt for him and the pain he had caused. I looked down at my stomach, my hand instinctively resting there, protecting the life inside me. This was about more than just us. This was about the future, about creating a safe and loving environment for our child. "I'll give you a chance," I said quietly, "but you need to understand that this is going to take time. I can't just forgive you in an instant. I need to see that you're serious, and I need you to stay committed to therapy. No more excuses." "I will," Ethan promised. "I swear." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of everything they meant. I didn't know if this was the right decision, but for now, it was the only decision I could make. As we stood there, looking at each other, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, something better. But I also knew that it would take time. Time to rebuild, time to trust, and time to heal. Could Ethan truly change? Could I ever feel safe again? Only time would tell. But for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to feel a small glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could make this work. The days following that meeting with Ethan were filled with a strange mix of hope and fear. I wanted to believe that things could get better, that maybe, just maybe, Ethan could change. But every time I saw him, I remembered the slap. I remembered the way his hand had hit me, the shock in his eyes, the regret, but also the helplessness. I couldn't forget that night, and I wasn't sure if I ever could. Every word he said, every action he took, was measured against that moment. Was he really trying to change? Or was this just another attempt to placate me, to get me to return to him, to his life that had become a prison for both of us? Ethan had kept his promise to attend therapy. He was going twice a week now, and every time we spoke, he told me about his sessions, how much he was learning, how hard he was working to understand why he had allowed his mother's influence to control him for so long. He said he wanted to change, that he wanted to be the husband I deserved. But every time I saw him, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was just trying to convince me, to say the things he thought I wanted to hear. His words were sincere, but words weren't enough anymore. Vivian, on the other hand, had been completely silent since the night of the slap. I hadn't seen her, hadn't heard from her. I wasn't sure if she was avoiding me on purpose, or if Ethan had finally set some boundaries, as he promised he would. But even in her absence, I could feel her presence lurking in the back of my mind. How long would it take before she made her way back into our lives, back into our home? How long before she found a way to control everything again? I couldn't stop thinking about it. It felt like no matter how hard I tried to rebuild my life, no matter how much progress I made, there was always something holding me back. And that something was her. Vivian, the woman who had never wanted me in her life, the woman who had always tried to tear Ethan and me apart, the woman who had pushed him to the point of violence. It was a Tuesday morning when I got the first text from her in weeks. I had just finished a breakfast of toast and coffee at Chloe's apartment, my usual routine since I hadn't returned home yet. My phone buzzed on the table, and I glanced at it, almost unwilling to pick it up. But I did anyway. The message was from Vivian, and just seeing her name made my stomach tighten. "Grace, I need to talk to you. I want to clear the air about everything. Please, let's meet." I stared at the message for a long time, trying to decide whether or not I should respond. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to cut her out of my life completely, but another part of me wondered what she could possibly want. Did she want to apologize? Did she want to make amends? Or was she just trying to stir up more trouble? I showed the message to Chloe. She was sitting across from me, sipping her own coffee, her eyes watching me carefully as I read the text. "What do you think?" I asked her. "Should I respond?" Chloe sighed, setting her cup down on the table. "Grace, you know what kind of person Vivian is. She's manipulative, she's controlling, and she's probably just trying to get back into your life so she can continue doing what she does best: tear you apart. I wouldn't trust her, not for a second." "I know," I said, my voice shaky, "but part of me wonders if maybe, just maybe, she's changed. Maybe she really does want to fix things." Chloe looked at me, her expression soft but firm. "You can't control what she wants, but you can control how you respond. Don't let her manipulate you again, Grace. If you go, you need to set boundaries. Make it clear that you won't tolerate her behavior anymore. And if she doesn't respect that, you walk away. Don't let her get to you." I nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. "You're right. I need to do this for me, for the baby." I debated for a while whether or not I should go, but in the end, I decided that I would. I couldn't let her keep running my life from the shadows. If I was ever going to have peace, I needed to face her, and I needed to do it on my terms. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop down the street, a public place where I wouldn't feel trapped. When I arrived, Vivian was already there, sitting at a table near the window, her back straight, her posture perfect, as always. She looked just like she always had. Cold, calculating, and poised. She was wearing a dark green blouse and a pair of sunglasses, even though it was overcast outside. It was clear she was trying to maintain control, to act as though she hadn't just caused the most painful rupture in my life. I walked up to the table, taking a deep breath before sitting down across from her. She didn't smile, didn't even acknowledge the tension in the air. Instead, she just looked at me with those piercing eyes, as though she were waiting for me to speak. "Grace," she said coolly, her voice smooth. "I know things have been difficult between us, but I want you to understand that everything I've done has been for Ethan. I only want what's best for him, and for you too, even if you don't believe that right now." I couldn't help but scoff. "What's best for me, Vivian? You've done nothing but tear me down since the day I met you. You've controlled Ethan for years, and you've made it impossible for us to have a normal relationship. You don't want what's best for me. You want what's best for you. And if that means driving a wedge between me and Ethan, you'll do it. Vivian's face didn't change. She just stared at me, her lips pressed into a thin line. You don't understand. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to protect Ethan. I was afraid you'd take him away from me. And I was right, wasn't I? He's pulling away from me, Grace. He's changing, and I don't know how to fix it. I felt a flicker of something, sympathy maybe, but it quickly vanished. You can't control him anymore, Vivian, and I'm not the one who's taking him away from you. He's making his own choices now. He's working on himself, and he's trying to make this work for our family. And if you keep pushing him, you'll lose him. And me. And the baby. Vivian's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of anger in her gaze, but it was quickly replaced by something else. A cold, calculating resolve. I'll do whatever it takes, she said, her voice low. You'll see. I'll make sure Ethan realizes what's important. And that's family. I leaned forward, meeting her gaze directly. This isn't about family anymore, Vivian. This is about me and Ethan and our baby. If you want to be a part of that, you need to let go. You need to stop controlling everything. For the first time in this conversation, I saw a shift in Vivian's expression. She didn't say anything, but I could see the gears turning in her mind. She wasn't used to being confronted like this. She wasn't used to anyone challenging her. I'll think about what you said, she said finally, standing up. But don't think I'm going to give up on my son. I'll do whatever it takes to protect him. I stood as well, not wanting to engage any further. Goodbye, Vivian, I said, turning away before she could respond. As I walked away, I felt a sense of relief. It wasn't a victory, but it was a small step in the right direction. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but at least I was finally standing up for myself, for my family. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control. The days that followed the confrontation with Vivian felt like a slow, agonizing climb towards something better, something more stable. I had never imagined that my life would be like this, so full of uncertainty, so filled with fear and doubt. But as time passed, something began to shift. It wasn't immediate, and it certainly wasn't easy, but there were small signs, small glimmers of hope, that told me I was doing the right thing. The right thing for me, for Ethan, and for the baby. Ethan kept his promise. He continued attending therapy, going twice a week, just as he had said he would. He didn't ask for forgiveness, not immediately. Instead, he showed me that he was serious about changing. He took responsibility for his actions, even the ones that were hardest for him to admit. But there was something in the way he spoke now, something that made me believe he wasn't just saying the words. He was trying to change. He was making an effort. And that effort, though small, was enough for me to begin to consider that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been broken. But the journey wasn't without its hurdles. Every time I saw Ethan, I felt a mixture of love and fear. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe that we could make it through this together. But the scar of the slap was still there, festering under the surface, a constant reminder of how quickly everything had fallen apart. It wasn't just the slap that haunted me. It was the way he had looked at me afterward, the look of regret mixed with confusion, as though he didn't even recognize himself. How could I reconcile that man with the one who had promised to protect me? How could I move forward when so much had been shattered in such a short time? Chloe was the one who kept me grounded. She never judged me, never pushed me to make decisions I wasn't ready to make. She just listened. She didn't try to fix things. She just gave me the space I needed to process everything, to make the choices that felt right for me. And that, in itself, was a gift. One evening, as we sat in Chloe's living room, sipping our usual cups of tea, I found myself staring out the window, lost in thought. I had just received another message from Ethan, another promise, another vow to do better. He was trying. I could see that. But could I ever trust him again? Grace? Chloe's voice broke through my thoughts. Are you okay? I turned to face her, her concerned expression mirrored in the reflection of the window behind her. "I don't know," I said, my voice quiet. "Ah, I don't know if I'll ever feel okay again. I want to, Chloe. I want to believe that this can work. I want to believe in him, in us, but I can't stop thinking about that night. I can't stop thinking about what happened." Chloe sighed, setting her mug down on the table. "Grace, you've been through so much, and no one can tell you how to feel. But you have to ask yourself, what do I need to heal? Do I need to stay away from him? Do I need space to think? Or do I need him to prove that he's really committed to changing?" "I need him to prove it," I said softly. "But part of me is scared that no matter what he does, it won't be enough. That I'll never feel safe again. That I'll always be looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next time he lets me down." Chloe reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to be uncertain. But you don't have to make any decisions right now. You're taking the first step toward healing by being honest with yourself. You don't have to have all the answers." Her words brought a small sense of relief, a reminder that I didn't have to rush. But the uncertainty was still there, gnawing at me. I had to decide whether or not I could truly forgive Ethan. I had to decide if I was willing to let him back into my life, knowing that there was still so much work to be done. The next day, I found myself at the coffee shop where Ethan and I had first met. I wasn't sure why I had come here, only that I needed to be somewhere that felt familiar. Somewhere that reminded me of the good times, of the person I had once been before everything fell apart. The door chimed as I entered, and I immediately saw Ethan sitting in the corner, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. His face was tired, his eyes dark with exhaustion, but there was something different about him today. There was a vulnerability in his gaze that made my heart ache. I hesitated for a moment before walking over to the table. Ethan looked up as I approached, his eyes lighting up with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Grace," he said softly, "I'm so glad you came." I sat down across from him, my hands resting on the table in front of me. For a moment, neither of us said anything. We just stared at each other, the weight of everything between us hanging in the air like a heavy fog. "I've been thinking a lot," I said, breaking the silence. "I've been thinking about everything, about what happened, about what you've been doing to change. And I realized something. I've been so afraid of trusting you again that I've been holding on to the pain. I've been letting the fear control me." Ethan's eyes widened with surprise, but he didn't say anything. He just watched me, waiting. "I'm still scared," I continued, my voice shaky. "But I'm willing to try, Ethan. I'm willing to see if we can rebuild what we had. For the baby, for us. But I need you to understand something. I need you to be committed to this. I need to see the changes. I can't go back to the way things were. I won't." Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude and determination. "I understand, Grace. I'm going to do everything I can. I've already started working on myself. I know it's going to take time, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm in this for the long haul." His words were the reassurance I needed, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Trust would take time, and healing would take even longer. But for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to feel a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Maybe we could find a way back to each other, back to a place where we could both feel safe and loved. Over the next few weeks, things slowly began to improve. Ethan continued his therapy, and I started seeing the small changes in him. He was more present, more aware of his actions. We began communicating better, talking about our fears and hopes for the future. He respected the boundaries I set, and I saw him making an effort to stand up to his mother, something that I hadn't thought was possible. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of doubt, moments when the past crept in and made me question everything. But those moments were becoming fewer and farther between. One evening, as I sat on the couch, watching Ethan cook dinner in the kitchen, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. It wasn't the kind of peace that meant everything was fixed, but it was a quiet reassurance that we were on the right path. We were building something together, something new, something stronger. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could trust again. Maybe not fully, but enough to keep moving forward. I love you, Ethan said, turning around to face me as he set the plates down on the table. I love you too, I replied, my heart full. I'm glad we're doing this. Ethan smiled, and for a moment, it felt like everything was right in the world again. The road ahead was still long, and there would be challenges. But for the first time in months, I felt hopeful about the future. I didn't know what it would hold, but I knew that we could face it together. If you've enjoyed this story and want to hear more emotional and inspiring tales like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll be the first to hear new stories that touch the heart and make you think. Don't miss out on the next chapter in this journey, and remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment. Thank you for being here, and I can't wait to share the next part of this incredible story with you. Stay tuned and stay connected.